Thank you, Joe. Right on, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, thank you. Right on. How's the audio? Sounds good. Okay, awesome. What's up, you guys? Good morning. Stoked to be here. All right, so I just do this and it goes. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm leading off the day today, and I'm going to talk about the real estate industry and kind of set the stage for all the rest of the stuff that's going to happen today. And hope you guys are interested in this. And there's a few realtors, right? Who's a realtor in the room? But if you're interested in who else is interested in real estate? Yeah, I'm going to display to you my obsession with real estate, okay, in this first session. Because if you want to get really good at something, I think you cannot be interested, you got to be obsessed, right? So understanding what's going on in the real estate industry, past, present, and future, whether you're just investing or you're in the business doing sales, whether you're a broker, a realtor, I think is super important. And so I'm going to run through today a little bit of history, what's currently going on. We're in a really transformative era of the real estate industry right now, and understanding where we're going and things that are affecting it, I think is super important no matter what facet of the industry you're in. So we're just going to get right into it. Like Joe said, I get to lead the agency team Hawaii, which is a real estate team here in the state of Hawaii, brokered by EXP. We were founded in 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we've done over the last 7 years or so at the end. But we're now 180 agents across all 4 islands. We do have an operation in Vegas. We've got about 25 agents in Vegas, so it's been a really cool journey from the real estate sales side of it in a very short amount of time, and I'll give you some lessons learned later. In 2025, we sold 1,008 transactions and 421 million in volume, and that's one thing I'm super proud of with this team. Is not just like the stats are cool, right? But who knows in the state of Hawaii, if you total up all of the county and state government programs for affordable housing and helping families get into housing. You guys know what that number is? How many families get helped every year? Does anybody know? It's disgusting. It's like 200 to 400 families a year, and we spend like $1 billion a year on it, right? It's crazy. Like all the politicians that talk about, we help families and we're gonna get people, first-time home buyers into housing and stuff, like it's just the biggest, bunch of BS. But this team, our average sales price is like $420,000-$430,000, right? Like we're not helping $1 million buyers all over the state of Hawaii. We're helping regular families, and this year alone, we're gonna hit 700 families helped by the end of next week. So absolute amazing work that this team does, and that's really one of the reasons why I think there's been so much success is because of the spirit and what they're trying to do. So I'm very, very proud of that. And from a little place like Hawaii, we're a top 5 team nationally for EXP. So there's 85,000 agents in EXP. We're competing against teams in San Diego and LA and Houston and Phoenix and so no matter where you come from, you can really do big things, and that's something that I've definitely learned through this platform at EXP. So I'm going to get into some brief history about the real estate industry because it's changing a lot. It's changed a lot over the last couple of decades, but it's really changing a lot right now. So the first kind of era of real estate was that like 1950 to 1970s where like all real estate was local, right? Like you had mom and pop shops, small brokerages. I mean, there was no internet, right? There wasn't really any mass media. TV wasn't a huge thing for advertising yet. And so it was very, very different, right? Very localized, very small. And then from the 70s to the 90s, you had the rise of the franchise brokerage. So what most of us are still familiar with, right? The Coldwell Bankers, Century 21's, RE/MAX was the very kind of first big franchiser. And then you had Keller Williams, right? And lots of different franchise models arose during this time, which nationalized the brand, had unity in advertising, sometimes unity in systems, but it really changed the way that the real estate industry operated from that small mom and pop operation to a national brand. And then in the late 90s to the kind of early 2000s, you had the rise of the internet, right? That changed the industry dramatically because now you had portals and you had MLSs and you had data, and you could even further nationalize your operation because you had the internet. It was a dramatic change from the days of MLS books and really that localized knowledge that we had pre the internet. And then from like the 2010s till now, there's been a very big shift, and we're at the end of this right now. And if you're watching the real estate news, you're seeing what's happening is you had the rise of the cloud brokerage. So there was like the tech-enabled brokerage where you had the internet, and then you had the brokerage that completely shifted to operating right on the internet, like no brick and mortar, right? And EXP was the first one to do that. You have Real, you have LPT, you have Epic, you have Fathom. Pretty much every new real estate sales operation that you've seen emerge in the last 10 years has been a cloud-based brokerage. Like nobody has started. Does anybody know a new franchise-based brokerage model. Like, it doesn't exist, right? Like, people just have stopped doing it because it's very inefficient. There's a lot of reasons. I'll talk about that in a second. But this has been what you've seen over the last like 10 years is this rise of the cloud brokerage. And going forward, that's going to be clearly what's going to dominate, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But what does it look like going forward, right? What does like the 2020s and beyond look like for the real estate industry? And I believe for years now that it's the teamerage model. So what we're doing here in Hawaii is not uncommon in other places. Like here, it's kind of uncommon. We're kind of the only ones doing it, so we're lucky because Hawaii's kind of slow to adopt stuff. So I definitely recognize that we have some competitive advantage just because what we do here is so unique. But in other places, in other large markets, like the brokerage model just doesn't really, the individual agent who does everything on their own, the individual agent who has to generate the lead, make initial contact, do the consultation, do the showings, manage the escrow, what traditional real estate agents do, it's just not efficient, and it limits what an agent is good at, focusing their time on what they're good at, and it limits the growth overall. And so what you're seeing now is the rise of the real estate team. So highly organized operations that focus in on supporting agents in doing what they do best, and that's, I believe, interacting with consumers, right? Showing them property, negotiating contracts, not doing the advertising and the SEO and figuring out how to leverage AI. And there's a million other things you get distracted with in the real estate business. And operations like ours all across the country are really taking over their markets because they're allowing agents to provide a higher level of service to their client. And one of the examples of that, one of our value propositions that I love in our advertising is we can show you property anywhere in the state of Hawaii in 4 hours. Like, show me a real estate agent that can do that, right? It's just something that doesn't exist. And that's what the consumer expects now, especially if you're an investor. Right? If you're an investor and you're not sure where you want to buy, which part of the island, which island, like, how do you efficiently go to one real estate operation and say, hey, I want to, over the course of the weekend, Joe contacted me recently. He's like, hey, I want to see property on both sides of the island. I'm like, no problem. Hooked him up with 8 experts in both markets. He came over, did one side of the island one day, one side of the island the other day, and got taken care of. And that's to me, the experience that the consumer expects and deserves. And the traditional realtor just cannot provide that experience. And sooner or later, consumers are going to gravitate towards an operation that can provide them that experience. And so that's what we're really focused on. And going forward, I believe that that's going to become more prevalent and more prevalent over time as the industry shifts. And there's a lot of consolidation going on now and all kinds of changes in data access. And we'll talk about all that in a second. So I wanted to give you guys a quick overview about what's going on in the real estate market. I'm like, how am I talk about real estate if you guys don't, I should talk about the real estate. So I just added this slide this morning, right? How do you guys feel the real estate market is right now? Good, bad? It's like boring. There's nothing going on. Like, it's like, it's been the same for 3 years, right? Like, there's nothing really happening that's significant. If you look at these are year-to-date numbers, so it's a good sample of the first half of 2025 versus the first half of 2026. And if you look at single-family home sales, it's up like 0.8% statewide in terms of number of sales. The median sales price year-to-date statewide is exactly the same as it was last year. For condos, the number of sales is down 1.5%, and the median sales price is down 1%. So the market's not crashing. The market's pretty stable. But if you're looking, like, there's a lot of people that kind of are trying to time the market and wait for the best time to buy. People have been doing that for 2 years now, and nothing's really changed, and it's continuing to be the same. And I just think for the next at least 12 to 18 months, it's going to continue to look like this, unless there's some humongous shift global economically and interest rates, which doesn't look like any of that is happening. The environment you're in today is an environment you'll be in for the next 12 to 18 months. So if you're trying to wait or like think something's going to be better in the future, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. And even though it's pretty flat, we're still seeing year-over-year appreciation, right? So the house you buy today, even if appreciation is only 1 or 2% year over year, I mean, if you wait a couple of years and you add 4% onto a $800,000 purchase, I mean, it becomes significant. And so just something to think about, overall environment-wise, what's going on in the market is pretty flat, it's pretty stable, and I think that's going to stay that way. We're lucky in Hawaii because we have a very limited supply of inventory, and there's always going to be high demand that it props up the market. If you look at some other places where they've really overbuilt, Vegas, which we're in the Vegas market too, so I've been watching the market there very much. Actually, insider tip, I would go buy one rental in Vegas right now. Like, the builder incentives are crazy. The new builds, they're giving away all kinds of incentives, price cuts, low interest rates. I mean, it's a really good time to buy in Vegas right now, especially new builds. So you don't have to worry about maintenance and stuff like that. So they've really been aggressive, and the inventory has now outpaced demand there. So we're seeing a lot of good opportunities. So that's what's going on. Any questions about the real estate market? We'll have questions at the end, but okay, we'll keep rolling. All right, so consolidation and scale. So this is one of the biggest things that's going on right now that's super significant in the real estate industry and how it operates. So what we've seen, this is just a short list of what we've seen in the last 12 months. So dramatic shift in what's been going on in the last 50 years versus in the last 12 months. So if you've been watching, Rocket bought Redfin. So one of the biggest real estate portals was bought by the largest mortgage company in America, right? And they also bought Mr. Cooper, which is one of the largest mortgage servicers in America. And at first you're like, okay, I don't really understand mergers and acquisitions. What does that mean? It's all about data, right? Data is so important today that you have 3 of the biggest sources of data collection in the real estate industry now as one unit who can now cross-pollinate all of that information, right? So you have a real estate portal, one of the largest real estate portals, one of the largest mortgage originators, and then the servicer, right? Mortgage servicing is super, super valuable because you guys change your email address and you change your phone number, but if you don't inform the person you pay your mortgage to, that's a problem, right? So the person you pay your mortgage to has the best data of anybody, right? When you fill out an online form, it's submitted on a lead form online, that data could get bad at any time in the future, but a mortgage servicing company has really good data. And the thing that matters about this to us as agents is data is going to become more important to protect because these people are going to be trying to take the data they have and steer the business to one of their services that they're affiliated with, right? So this is one of the first big kind of across the board consolidations of different ancillary services within the industry was the Rocket Redfin merger. The next big one was the Compass Anywhere merger. So Anywhere is the parent company of every big franchise brand that you all recognize. Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Better Homes and Garden, Realty One. There's a ton. There's like 8 different large franchise brands that Anywhere was the overall holding company for, and Compass, which is one of these tech forward companies that really is only about 15 years old or something. They're relatively new. They acquired Anywhere. Took on a bunch of debt. I'm not going to get into whether or not I think that was a good idea, but the largest brands in America, right, that have been around for 50, 60, 70 years have been taken over by a tech-enabled modern real estate operation. And then Real acquired RE/MAX. So the other most recognized brand in the real estate industry, RE/MAX, was acquired by Real, which is a upstart after it's about, I think, 13 years old. So it started around the time EXP started, but it's one of the large cloud brokerage companies. Very small, 30,000 agents at Real. RE/MAX has somewhere like 150, 160,000 agents. So this huge entity, this huge well-known entity was acquired by one of these cloud-based modern brokerages. And the goal is to modernize them and make them profitable. We'll see if they're successful at that. Institutional capital. So Keller Williams is the largest private franchisor, right? So they're not a publicly traded company. They're a private company, but Blackstone Capital came in and they purchased a majority stake in it. So another shift in ownership where Gary Keller and the founders are not the majority owners anymore of Keller Williams. So that's a very big shift in that segment of the industry. And then EXP, where we're at, acquired NextHome, which is one of the newer franchise brokerages. It's very small, about 5,000 agents, but their idea behind this is to have a multimodal model. So it's like if you don't really want to do the cloud brokerage thing, but you want the support of a cloud brokerage, but to have the franchise freedom, you're going to have the ability to do that. We'll see how that works out, but another consolidation. And then the most recent one is Bed Bath & Beyond bought Fathom. So Fathom is another cloud-based brokerage that is modern last 10 years and kind of weird. Like, why would Bed Bath & Beyond buy a real estate company? And again, it's consolidation of services, right? So if you think about, okay, I am a retailer that sells home products. If I can capture the business at the point of home sale and get them over to buy our products, you can keep more of that business and that revenue in-house. So this is really significant, right? I mean, this isn't like a one-off or a two-off. Like you see like multiple mergers and acquisitions amongst the biggest players in the industry, like all happened within the last 12 months. So lots of stuff going on in the real estate industry, and I think there's going to be more to come. But the two big takeaways from this is this signals definitively. Any of the true believers who went to a cloud-based model 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I left Coldwell Banker and went to where we're at now. I knew the franchise model was dying. Like, I mean, it was very, very clear the inefficiencies and the costs that were there. But in the last 12 months, that theory has been completely proven. Like basically every large franchise model has has given up and been acquired by a modern cloud-based model. And so that's a huge shift in what's going on overall in the real estate industry. And it's going to really affect how brokerages operate and how agents are compensated. And there's all kinds of stuff happening. How that all plays out, we don't know yet, right? That's going to play out over the next like 5 years. And then the other piece of it is consolidation has momentum, right? I mean, it's picking up faster and faster and faster. And I think anybody who's not a part of the consolidation game is looking around saying like, who do I jump in bed with? Because I'm not going to be able to do this thing on my own. And we got to unify. And a lot of smart people in the industry are feeling like there is going to be, 3 to 5 major players in the residential real estate space when it comes to sales in the next 10 years. And there's going to be very few of the mom and pop shop, independent franchise type models because it's just not efficient anymore. And the agent landscape is too competitive to be able to survive under those models. So probably way more inside baseball than you ever cared about, but when you're seeing people shift around and move and you're seeing companies close and rebrand, like this is why all this stuff is happening, all right? Okay, so policy and data wars. So this is the next thing that's happening. So imagine a world, we take so much stuff for granted in America, right? But imagine a world where you want to go buy a piece of property, whether it's for an investment or for a second home, or you just want to buy your first home. And you have to go to 17 different websites to look for what's available. You have to go individually to different offices and ask them what they have listed. If you are an agent, you have to pay multiple different portals to put your listing online to advertise your client's home. Like, it sounds insane, right? Like, because right now it's so easy, right? You go Redfin, Zillow, Trulia. I mean, you have 10 different places you can go on every single listing that's available. You can go on any brokerage's website, any individual agent's website, every listing that's available you can see. It's a very, very efficient model. And America and Canada are like the only 2 places in the world that this exists, right? Like the real estate sales model if you look for real estate in Europe, in South America, it's like this, where the individual company is the only one that advertises their listings. So it doesn't go into one central system where it's all available to everybody. And so it's super inefficient. You look at average days on market in some South American countries, it's like 250 days. It takes forever to sell a house because you don't have any idea what's available. And then there's no public system that tells you what other things sold for. So you have no idea how to comp a property. Like you have no idea how to price a property. It's very hard to get a mortgage because banks don't feel good about it. So the stuff that's fundamental to the real estate industry and how it works here is not common across the rest of the world. And we take it for granted. And there are companies in this whole consolidation fight that want it to be that way. Okay, so when you hear things like private exclusives and private listing networks and preview listings and all this kind of stuff, it's a big part of the marketing push right now and a big debate that's going on. But the thing that makes this all work is called clear cooperation. It's a rule that we all agree to as being a member of the National Association of Realtors. And what it states simply is, if I get a listing and I market it publicly, I put it on the MLS within 24 hours. And that way it's available to everybody to see, everybody can access it, all the consumers can see it, other agents can see it, and it's transparent for everybody. And there are players in this consolidation game that would like to just be able to withhold their listings and only advertise the listings that they have and force consumers to come to them to get access to their listings. And it's a very, very dangerous game. We're in the middle of lots of different fights and lawsuits right now to see if this plays out and that actually happens. And a big thing that's happening in the industry is people are taking sides, right? You got to decide, are you on the side of supporting clear cooperation, or are you on the side of private exclusive and private listing networks and all this stuff that would completely change the way consumers interact with the real estate market and definitely the way that we operate as brokers and agents. So it's a big deal. We'll see. It's going to be probably another 12 months to 2 years until this all plays out in court, but we got a lot changing right now. I'm not keeping track of time. How much time I got? I think I'm good. Joel, just give me the kind when I'm Paul, okay? All right. So some legislative crackdowns. I won't go into these in detail, but this is how many state legislators are reacting to this. Is most state legislatures, when you bring this to them, or most politicians, and you tell them, hey, we want to go to this system of like individual listings, and you cannot see everybody's listings, they understand that that's bad for the consumer. I think we could all agree. I don't know anybody who thinks it's good for the consumer. So we have 3 states, Washington, Illinois, and New York, that passed legislation this past year that ban private listing networks. So if you are a brokerage and you want to only advertise your listings on your website and not share it with everybody through the MLS. That's not going to be legally possible in these 3 states. In Hawaii, we had a bill that got pretty far, like all the way to conference committee at the end and then died. So I'm thinking it's going to pass next year, and we'll pass similar legislation next year. But this is because the real estate industry can't figure this out, and our National Association of Realtors can't take a hard stand on this because they're trying to please everybody. State legislators are getting involved and codifying this into law. So that's another thing that's going on that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And so additional stuff. So industry changing lawsuits, shifting gears a little bit, connected but not. If you watch the real estate, does anybody like watch, this is like me just being a nerd, right? This is like the most real estate nerdy thing you've ever heard, right? All kinds of crazy stuff. But there's tons of lawsuits going on right now that are changing the industry. The first one, which you all may have had personal interactions with, is in August of 2024. It wasn't a law that changed, but it was an industry practice that changed, where now as a buyer, as a consumer, you have to sign a buyer broker agreement before you go and see property. Has anybody done this, right? You guys all love doing this. If you bought real estate in the past, there was kind of a change, and you're like, why do I got to do this now? But now as a buyer, you have to negotiate and agree to compensation and a term of representation with your broker before you go and actually open a door and see a house. And that is a big change, a big shift in the industry. We have to retrain all of our agents. And it's something that goes back to deciding on what your real estate brokerage or agent looks like in terms of representation. Is if you sign an exclusive agreement to see property with one agent, what is their availability and access and expertise on the wide range of things you could be looking at? It's something as a consumer you should be asking about, right? And understanding, am I limiting myself to one person's expertise, or do I have access to a larger organization that can help me if I shift gears and I want to do a luxury property, or I want to buy an off-grid farm property? Like, do they have the expertise to represent me in all of those different facets of real estate? So buyer broker agreements were a big one. Going forward, it decoupled commissions, right? So before, what we would do is we would negotiate the commission to sell a house with a seller, and then it would be 5 or 6% of whatever we negotiated, and then we would split that between the buyer's brokerage and the selling brokerage. And now we do that individually. So we will negotiate the cost to sell a home with the seller. The buyer has to negotiate the cost of buying with the buyer's broker, and in many cases, the buyer's broker and buyer will negotiate the cost of their commission into the offer. So the seller is still paying for the commission technically, they're just negotiated separately, right? It's not pre-decided when the property goes on the market. So that was a huge industry-changing shift that happened recently. There's another big class action lawsuit going on right now with, like, everybody knows Zillow, right? Zillow is the biggest portal in America. They got it into the home loan business. And what they're doing is the agents that they work with, which in full disclosure, we are one of them, when they give us leads to work with their leads, they want us to send those leads to have an opportunity to get pre-qualified with Zillow Home Loans. And they don't have to buy with them, but they just want the opportunity for the consumer to see what they offer and give them some other choices. And there is a big push in the industry, or there's agents in the industry who believe that that's steering and it's a RESPA violation, which prevents collusion between different real estate entities. Long story, you don't have to hear about it, but this is a big thing where, depending on what happens with this lawsuit and others, what I talked about in the consolidation slide about Rocket, Redfin, right, Mr. Cooper, you have these companies that are unifying all of these different ancillary services to coordinate the data, right? When I get a lead, if I can get that lead to buy, I mean, people think realtors make all the money, right? We make so much money off the commission. Mortgage is a far more profitable business than real estate is. So if a mortgage operation can capture more real estate business from a real estate portal or a real estate operation, that is good for them. And then escrow and title is also very, very profitable. And so there's companies that are stacking all their different ancillary services together, and they want to keep all the consumer into one ecosystem, and then they can draw more revenue out of the entire real estate transaction, right? So that's part of what's happening here. Is there's different lawsuits that are challenging whether or not that's the right thing to do, whether it's the good thing for the consumer. We'll see how that ends up shaking out. And then the last thing on here is data gatekeeping, like I talked about earlier, right? There's all kinds of different fights about data. One of the biggest ones being MRAD and Zillow and Compass in Chicago. If you saw recently, the MLS there cut off their data feed to Zillow because Zillow wasn't displaying certain listings that were violating their terms of service that Compass was putting on the market. It's lots of drama, lots of, like all kinds of players. But at the end of the day, there's some fights that are going to happen over, can you limit who gets data if you're an MLS? Because that's a big piece. Is like, right now, you go pay the MLS $1,200 a year, and they give you a data feed, and you can display those listings anywhere you want. That's what all of these companies do. That's what all the real estate companies do. So that could change in the future, depending on how these lawsuits play out. Talked about Zillow and MRAD. I'm going to keep going because I'm short on time here. So lots of lawsuits, right? Nothing super important there. All right, so what does this all mean for you guys, right? And y'all are from different kind of walks of life, industries. You might not be all realtors, but it really does matter to everybody that's involved in real estate, because all of this stuff is going to change how the industry operates. And so the first thing is it depends, like I said, where you do business and who you choose to work with, right? Because right now, if you choose to work with a company that wants to get rid of clear cooperation, the money that they're making off of your commission is going to go towards that fight, right? And it may not affect you directly, but you kind of got to know, you vote with your feet, right? You got to decide, okay, if somebody's making money off of me, what are their ulterior interests and what are their larger motives that's going to affect me in the future? So it's something to consider when you decide what brokerage to work with, is kind of understanding what is your position in this overall fight that's going on in terms of clear cooperation and data access and private listing networks and all of those different things. The second thing is, do you listen to all the noise, right? There's lots of stuff. This was like a ton of craziness that I covered. It's important. I'm interested in it. But at the end of the day, to succeed in life, like, you just got to put your head down and continue to work, right? So you can get caught up in all of this, or you can take advantage of it and leverage the things that are advantageous to you, but just don't get caught up in all of the different stuff that's going on. Continue to do what you're doing, make a plan, work hard, all the things that you got to do. So don't get caught up. I tell my agents all the time, we don't participate in the market, right? Whatever's going on in the market is irrelevant. We're going to continue to help people. We're going to work hard. We're going to follow up. We're going to do all the things that are necessary to operate at a high level, and that's how they continue to see success. Because a lot of agents are sticking their head in the sand and they're sad and the market's bad and they're complaining about all this different stuff. And if you do that, the results will reflect it. And then don't ever lose sight of what's possible. I'm going to show you guys what's possible in a second. All right, talked about taking a side, choosing where your data goes is a big one, right? Who you share your data with is going to be shared with lots of other people now. I don't know if there's such thing as data privacy anymore, because it doesn't really matter with AI and everything else. But data is the king going forward, right? And who has access to your data and how they can follow up with you and how they can convert you into a lead is absolutely critical. So being aware of that is important. And then the alliances, right? This is a lot, very much for real estate agents as it is important for consumers, is who are you aligned with in the grand scheme of things in your business, because the sides that people are taking are going to affect what our whole entire environment and landscape looks like in the future. So it's something to be aware of and take into consideration when you start to do business. And so I'll end with this, guys. This is what's possible in real estate, whether you're into sales or whatever. I'm super passionate about the real estate industry. It changes people's lives. It makes more people build generational wealth. It's an avenue to build generational wealth unlike anything else, right? So whether you're just an investor looking to buy a couple of rentals or you want to get into the real estate industry and sales, it's absolutely insane what we've experienced. And so I just want to give you a picture, right? And I believe in who knows what the 4-minute mile story is all about, Roger Bannister, right? For thousands of years, humans have run and raced each other. And not until the 60s, when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, did people start to do it. Before that, doctors said it was impossible. They said your heart would explode if you ran a mile in less than 4 minutes. And then as soon as one guy did it, like 1,000 people did it in the next 12 months, right? Because the belief that it can be done changes the mindset of everybody, and it lets you break through to that next level. And this is what's possible in residential real estate. So I started my career as a corporate banker. I do 20 or 30 deals a year as a relatively successful real estate agent. Came to EXP in 2019, and this has been the year-over-year growth. We did like 90 deals our first year as a small 5-person team, and today we have 180 agents across the whole state with 1,000 deals. So stuff goes crazy in a very short amount of time if you just put in the work in, you have the right intentions. And I just want you to know that the sky's the limit in terms of what's possible in real estate. It doesn't happen overnight, but people over a few 4 or 5 years, you can see dramatic change in growth, and it's been a super cool experience. And this is what I said in the beginning. Doesn't matter where you're from. In the state, our team does basically double what all the rest of the next 9 teams do combined. And across the nation, we're number 3 for units. Actually, that number is from like 13, so it's like we're close. We're like 790 or 790 or 690 right now. But super cool that you can come from a very small island. I was born and raised in a big island in South Dakota, like not a super fancy place. And I was talking about the coconut city. Right? When you're raised in Hawaii, people tell you like, you can't go that high, you can't do that much, you can't compete with smart people from the mainland and go to fancy schools and all that stuff. And I just absolutely don't believe that that's that's true. And if you just keep breaking through the, coconut ceiling is like the glass ceiling, and you can't see through it, right? But it's really not even solid, right? You just open up the leaves and you continue to rise, right? So just anytime, people say, you cannot because you're from Hawaii, it's definitely not true. And our crew's proving that, and I'm super proud of that. So whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. So always remember that, whatever your goals are in life, and sky's the limit. So you guys have any questions? That's what I got. I do my time on time. Do I have time for questions? I know we're supposed to have. We good? And so you can take questions, and if not, this is my contact information, so if I can help you with anything, I don't need to sell you a house, but I will connect you with a great agent who can. But if I can help you with your business, your goals, just reach out. There's links out there to book meetings with me, so just use the Calendly link. I'm happy to talk story about really anything you're interested in. And follow me on Instagram, Kono Broker. I got lots of content that we put out almost daily. So if you want updates on the real estate industry, the market, and just like business mindset advice, got lots of that stuff that happens on Instagram. Any questions? All
right, thank you, Dylan. Great information, man. Awesome. And if you guys are